It seems like my last video has ruffled a few feathers. That wasn't my intention, but as the old saying goes, whatever will be, will be. I made a connection about the book that Jim presented Ethan after gathering a few things from the RV in season 1. In this scene, Jim held up a book entitled The Adventures of the Grand Gulagog, which bears a striking resemblance to a real book in our world called The Adventures of Two Dutch Dolls and the Gollywog. It was Jim who presented the book. Jim also cawed like a crow in the RV and flapped his wings around like a crow and cawed after presenting Ethan with the Cromonacle book, or the Cromonacle book. Shout out to Percy Garcia for putting together the Jim Crow when I spoke about the Crow Man in the video a few weeks ago. That led me to the connection about their son Thomas. You see, the real person who created the character and named Jim Crow was actually named Thomas Dartmouth Rice. Now, those who say I'm reaching or digging too deep, you might need to take your feet out the shallow end of the pool and stretch your arms out and say that the Gulagog doesn't sound like the Gollywog and the cover doesn't have any similarities to the character. You would have to deny that the Cromonacle starts with crowmen. You would also have to deny that Jim imitated a crow multiple times. You would also have to deny the Jim Crow and Thomas connection. And if you're saying that you deny these connections, then perhaps it's not me that is too deep. It must be you that is too shallow. And that's okay, because the writers have inserted many nuances to the show for people of all walks of life to connect with. So it's okay if you think I'm reaching. That's cool with me. But I must say, if you didn't like those connections, then strap your life preserver on, because this might feel like Ocean Gate to you. I'm going to break down the bloodline connection, the visions of Jade, and the reason why Jade saw the Civil War soldiers when he was with Jim. So without further ado, let's cook. The first ingredient is Jade's vision. The first was in the cellar where he saw the man under the boulder in the closet, the same place where we saw Victor, his mother, and his sister. There's blood in every one of his visions except for the visions of the children in the tunnels. Also, in this vision, the man looked like he had been taken by an evil spirit like Julie, Randall, and Marielle. Their eyes were the same, and they were also screaming. The second aspect of his vision was the foreshadowing of the actual perspective of the roots, or the symbol. Jade fell on his back and saw the symbol, just like the children laying on their backs to see the roots. And in the roots vision, there's no blood. The reason why there's no blood is because the roots and the blood symbolize the same thing. That first vision was in a root cellar, but the second vision was by a tree, and Jim was in that tree setting the antenna. Trees also symbolize family or family tree. As Jade places his palm on the tree, he notices the blood and then the vision of the Civil War soldiers hanging in the tree. Then a soldier that wasn't hanging, who was angry as hell and stops at nothing to get Jade. He runs away from the tree and only comes out of that vision when Jim places his palm on Jade, as Jade did with the tree. Now, the Civil War was the bloodiest conflict in American history, and it lasted for 4 years. It actually caused a cotton famine in many parts of Europe. Northern France was hit the hardest. Although France was heavily affected by the war, in the public, they kept a strict neutrality with regards to the American conflict. But on the low, they supported the recognition of the Confederate States as a separate nation. So why in the hell was the soldier so mad at Jade? Because Jade's bloodline or family tree is partly French. And not only did Napoleon want to recognize the Confederate States as a nation, he totally disregarded the reason for the war in the first place. The reason for the war was the morality of slave and the legal business practices of chattel slavery in the South. He was willing to overlook slavery to stop the cotton famine. Jade was a French orphan who grew up with his grandmother until the age of 12. so he had to go back to the States with his uncle. Now, this is where it really starts to connect. The Civil War soldier and Jade are both directly connected to the slavery aspect. Jade was the first to see the symbol as roots as far as we know, other than the children. His palm on the tree while Jim Crow was in the tree, the blood on his hands, the soldiers hanging in the tree, along with his visions of the roots. We all know that roots are where you are from. Like when someone says they have roots in this community, they most likely mean that they have family members all throughout the community. They're talking about their bloodline. We also know that Jade plays the violin or the fiddle. We know about him being in the tech industry that is heavily involved with the slave mining of cobalt. That's what I think the writers meant by having the blood on his hands. We also know that Jade came to this place with a companion named Toby. Toby and Fiddler are the names of two characters from the movie Roots by Alex Haley. So I guess I'm reaching about Jade the Fiddler and the Toby connection to the movie Roots. Also about Jade's French roots and France's role in the Civil War. Also about Jim Crow, and Thomas Rice. I must be reaching about the roots and the blood in Jade's visions. I'm also reaching about the Gulagog sounding like gollywog. And since I'm doing that much reaching, I think I'll stretch my arms out a bit more and point out that Sarah cut out the tongue of Toby, which was a common practice in early slavery days for slaves who insisted on speaking a language that the slave handlers didn't know. Yeah, it's pretty crazy that they show Jade the roots in the finale, only to look at Jade, aka Fiddler, and Toby coming into town together, and Toby was the main character in Roots, and Fiddler was his friend. Again, I have to say to the showrunners and the writers, if you didn't do this intentionally, I am available to join your writing team for future seasons. Now, I didn't write the show, so I'm just telling you what I see and what I notice inside of it. However, the same people that complain about not getting any answers also claim that you're going too deep when you look at the actual clues that we do have there right in front of our faces. I mean, we may not like the history of America, but that's besides the point. We're all here to enjoy each other's theories and have a good time while we're prognosticating what may happen. Just a little something to think about while we wait on the next episode. That's all for my video today. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.